for another episode of the Dirty Laundry Game Worn Hockey Podcast, episode number 18. We've done a lot of great podcasts so far, had a lot of fun guests and round tables and things like that. Welcoming another guest this week, Chad O'Neill. Chad is the founder and operator of SkateTech, skate sharpening equipment repair, and he knows his stuff. He has worked with the Blues. He has worked with the St. Louis Bandits of the North American Hockey League, a team that I used to watch here in Springfield when they played against the Springfield Junior Blues. And then because they went to the big show with the St. Louis Blues, and is now running this amazing business. I've had the pleasure of Chad helping me out with some skates and some issues, and runs a hell of a business. Evening, Chad. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well. Tim, let's start first. Just your background. What got you into hockey, and then have brought you to this level now?
I've just always been obsessed with hockey ever since I was a kid. I mean, started off with like everybody playing street hockey with buddies, and just kind of slowly graduated to ice hockey. And then I became a ginormous equipment nerd, probably about the age of 12. I got to a point where I was going to almost every Blues game with my grandpa, and I wasn't really watching the players as much as I was looking at their equipment. And I don't know, it was one of those things. For whatever reason, I was drawn to it. And back then there wasn't a whole lot of options for me, but if I could hand stitch something, or back, everybody's using leather gloves and spray paint logos, and stuff that looked like pro gloves. Just got into little stuff like that. And that's kind of what led me into kind of the equipment obsession a little bit. And then of course was a huge Brett Hall freak, and Blues growing up, being here in St. Louis. So slowly started collecting some stuff as a kid, and had a few pieces. And then as I got older and got a job and could pay for my own stuff, I started collecting a little bit more, and just kind of went from there. Finished playing hockey competitively, and then got on with the St. Louis Bandits in 2008, 2009. Won a Robertson Cup with them. Was on with them a second year, and then took 1 year off. I was working hockey retail at Johnny Mac Sporting Goods back when they were open, and then got on with the Blues in 2011. So I was with them till 2017, and that was kind of it. And then I started this SkateTech business. So it's been an adventure.
And even at the SkateTech level, because I follow your social media, you deal with pro guys that
Oh, yeah.
send stuff to you and get taken care of. But when you, and how the collector, you pay attention to stuff. You're in some of the groups and see kind of how what collectors look for, the
Mhm.
things, the wear, the customizations.
Oh, yeah.
When did you start doing a lot of those customizations when you were with the Bandits on different things when players wanted stuff, or was it
Yep.
even playing around before that?
I was playing around way before that, just with my own stuff, with some buddies' gear. And then it kind of got when I got on with the Bandits. I was doing a lot more than probably the average equipment guy there. I mean, it was, tightening sleeves on jerseys, and just shortening fight straps, and I don't know, any kind of goofy stuff you could think of with gloves, whatever I could come up with to do myself, I try to do it. And so yeah, I was doing a lot more than probably the average guy at that level. But then when obviously I got on with the team, it kind of led into a whole new world, because you got a lot more options with materials, and obviously players get a little more picky, and they're pretty fine-tuned by then. So
And so when you went to the Blues, were you doing more of the skates, the sticks, setting up those kind of things? Were you doing jerseys and all of it?
I was doing a little bit of everything. I was the third guy, so I actually kind of worked with the visiting teams as well. Picked them up from the airport, helped set up their room, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I did jerseys, socks, sewing holes. That's something we do after every practice, every game. One of the first things I do in the morning, come in and make sure all the rooms are set up, and I'd sit down with a pile of socks or whatever from the night before. We'd patch holes and all that kind of stuff. So we had another guy that did quite a bit of the jersey stuff too. But I mean, yeah, last minute, I remember twice we had some e-bug situations, trying to frantically stitch together a nameplate, or, throw a jersey together last minute, crazy stuff like that. So I mean, got guys like Ryan Reeves, get in a fight and rip his jersey all the way down the middle. And, we were pretty good about carrying a second jersey or two in the trunk, because for guys like him, just that stuff happens all the time. And instead of sitting there trying to sew something, just pull another jersey out and away you go. But usually we would try to make it work, and might look kind of ugly for a period or two, but we'll get through for the game and then get them a new one for the next one.
So, and those are some of the questions that we as collectors talk about is
Yeah.
those kind of things, especially the enforcers, and you may not see it quite as much now because that has died down. So I know
Oh
that
yeah.
Reeves is still having a great time in Minnesota now, and everybody tries to go after his jerseys. But were there, with your time with the Blues, were there a lot of guys that had backups or that were picky where they wanted one every period or things like that?
Um, Not really. I mean, like I said, we had a few guys, few of our tough guys. We would always have a couple in the trunk waiting. Like I said, obviously Revo and a couple guys like that. But no, I mean, you'd have your Verizon nights and whatever giveaway nights you would have. So you might have a guy wearing one or two different jerseys or whatever. I know, Marty Brodeur, when he came in, he wore a handful of jerseys. His first few games was wearing a different one every period or whatever. Because obviously it's Marty Brodeur, and every time he
Oh, of
played,
course.
another record set, all that kind of stuff. So we had some stuff, rookies. That's a big one. Rookies usually kind of have a couple that they would wear so they could keep one, and then I don't know, they sell one or whatever. Um, so yeah, you get a lot of that kind of stuff, but it was mostly like the giveaway nights, casino night stuff. We'd run into a lot of that.
And like you gave an example of some of the rookies. As I recently picked up again, the Blues seem to be cleaning out closets again.
Yeah.
Picked up an Eric Johnson rookie, and it's dated for a particular game, signed by Bert with a number 3. We were able to reach out to him and found out that was Eric Johnson's third period for that particular game.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing he was going through just a ton, especially being the
Yeah.
being the first pick too.
Yeah.
And
Yep. Yeah. Couple, I mean, I think Tarasenko too, I want to say, if I remember right, I think he might have had a different jersey for each period or two, something as long as I know he was kind of a highly sought after guy. So
oh, sure, and those, I know that the player would get some, the team probably keeps some to sell,
right.
or charities and whatnot. Did you have, working with the players, did you find guys were picky with wanting certain customizations, or were you surprised by some of the requests, or were there some just off the wall requests for you?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of always knew coming in that there was some odd stuff. I mean, like I said, I was such a nerd. I was, reading stories online and, hearing stories from other guys and stuff about just crazy stuff guys would do with, moving, cutting their glove and moving the palm in, 3 millimeters, and crazy, just ripping certain padding out of helmets and all that kind of stuff. The stick stuff was the craziest one. I was kind of known as the stick guru while I was there. That was kind of my thing. I took care of a lot of guys' sticks. So anything from cutting them down, taping them, gripping their sticks, their rubber grips or whatever. Um, and yeah, I mean, I had Tarasenko is, one of them. Obviously, he had a lot of superstitions with his equipment. He liked a certain liner in his gloves. He wanted his name in a certain color on his cuff, stitched and everything. And then, with sticks, they had to be exact height. And, it just, he had all these weird quirks. And, I mean, we had a ton of guys like that. Alex Steen was another guy. He was very particular with his stuff. But honestly, it almost kind of makes your job easier sometimes, because those guys, you get them so dialed in, and they just don't change anything. And it's nice to have guys like Vladdy. I mean, he uses the same stuff forever. I mean, he's gonna probably be like Crosby. I would think he's gonna wear the same equipment his entire career, and he just won't change. So
And you're right. So you have a template stick then for when his come in
yeah,
and chop them all down to that.
yeah.
I
Pretty
know.
much every guy has a measure stick. Yeah,
Wow, I know Steens were always fun when you'd see them show up in the shop and
yeah.
it'd be cut way down. It was
Oh yeah.
surprised to see how low those were.
Yeah, so he actually had us for a long time, was just cutting them down. And then he still liked the old wood knobs that Easton used to make
Oh yeah.
way back in the day. And so we'd cut them down, and then he would put that knob in. He just liked the feel of it. And he would have a good handful of them. Then at one point he kind of ran out, And so my job at one point was to ask every equipment guy that came in, or we go to their building, if they had any of those old knobs floating around. I think it was Florida had a bunch of them at one point, got us through a season. And then I remember him telling me what at the end of that year, he's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with these knobs. I got to figure something out. And so we were kind of on a search for him, but just couldn't find him. And he actually showed up at camp the following year, and he brings his bag in and it just slams it down. It just rattled. You hear us rattling like these wooden wind chimes. Like, what is that? And he's like, oh, you gotta check these out. He opens his bag, and there are hundreds of these handmade wooden knobs. Some guy in Sweden, like he's a woodworker, he handmade these knobs for him.
Wow.
And I mean, they were unbelievable. He did a really good job with them. So he used those for most of the year. And then he went back, and that guy actually ended up getting a, I don't know, CNC machine or whatever, and then making them the exact diameter of a shaft, had his name engraved on them. I mean, it was really cool. It was pretty phenomenal. I think I might still have a couple floating around.
And would
But
they end up in the sticks that they would sell, or would he yank those out to continue to use them?
sometimes he would leave them in. A lot of times we would pull them out because he liked to reuse them. He would tape them, and then he just didn't want to tape up too many sticks. So it was easier just to leave the black tape on the knob on the wood one, and then just redo his gauze on the top. And then so sometimes he'd leave them in, sometimes he wouldn't. But I'd say the vast majority of them we probably pop the knob out of. So you would usually see a lot of those, and
So that's why
usually,
you'd see him cut down so short in the
yeah,
store and wonder
yeah.
how is he playing with such a it makes sense.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. So him and his
Yes,
Yoda.
I was just gonna bring that up. You'd see it because
Yeah.
first when you'd see fans come in the store, who the hell is Yoda? And then
Yeah.
they'd have who knew would have to explain that.
So he got that nickname. I honestly can't remember what year that was. Guys used to joke around Jay and Shorts a lot. Just he was I remember one time, the guys would make fun of him. He just says, I don't know, lack of intelligence sometimes, I guess. And I remember somebody said something one time, and they're like, "Hey, didn't you go to school?" He's like, "Yeah, I went to Colorado College, whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, the Harvard of the West." We they kind of always laughed. And at one point, we were sitting in the locker room, and somebody mentioned something about, I don't know, there was like a eclipse or something going on with the moon that night or whatever, and somebody brought it up in the room, like David Bax or something, and he was like, "Wait, like, so what does that mean?" And he started explaining what the eclipse was, and he's like, wait a minute. So like, then he went his whole thing about how the earth is spinning, and all of a sudden his like mind was blown, and the guys just like laughed at him all the time. So Steiner and them said that they were going to have a daily every day he would come in and they would teach him something new, a life skill or whatever. And so he'd come in the training room and they talk about something. And Steiner one day came in and told him something. He's like, wow, man, how do you know all this? He's like, Shorty, because I went to school. And he's like, man, you're really smart. You're like Yoda or something. And then it just stuck. And then he just started
That's
calling him Yoda.
fun.
And that's how it ended up on his sticks. So that's why that's on there.
That's a fun story, and some of those kind of things you
Yeah,
don't hear.
right.
Did you? I mean, I guess with some of this equipment and seeing you in the career that you've had, seeing the technology change so much, has it surprised you, or did you, like you talked about with some guys like Tarasenko, not just keeping their same gear until
Yeah.
they're done playing? Did you find some guys wanted to go to that new technology, or were people really apprehensive as newer skates and lighter things came out?
Yeah, there's again, you got guys that, I keep bringing him up, but Vladdy, just because he won't change anything. I mean, when the quick change blades came out where you just swap the blades in and out with a trigger, he was one of the guys. I'm pretty sure he still is not wearing them. There's a couple guys around the league that still want the old Bolton style for whatever reason. But he's not a guy. He doesn't like to take his skates off during a game and get them, resharpen. He'd rather you stone him 15 times and then try to milk it through a game if you can. But he's a guy that liked to stay. Steiner was a guy that was pretty stuck with what he had. And then you had guys like, like Dmitry Yaskin. I mean, he was always trying out sticks. I mean, Vladdy tried a lot of sticks sometimes, but he never used them. He would get samples of stuff, never use it, or guys would give him stuff that, try to get him into their brand. But yeah, there was a handful of guys that just, Alex Petrangelo was one. It seemed like he was always trying a new stick. Always kind of had to have something new, updated, and whatever, whether it be a graphic or not. But Yeah, there's a lot of guys like that like Brett Hall, from all the stories I've heard, it was a guy like that he always wanted to have the newest and try everything when it came out and all that kind of stuff. So
And you mentioned Petro. Some of the stuff that I've seen over his career in St. Louis and going to the equipment sales and that is he started in Easton, and then
yep,
when Easton went away, I think it was he was wearing a Bauer wrist guard, so it said
yep,
Bauer, but if you got the gloves, everything else was still the Easton logos. It just
right.
were hidden in such a way. It was crazy to find some of those things. Did you
Yeah.
have to do those kind of modifications, or were they sent that way?
They most of that stuff they sent like that. Bauer purchased Easton, and so a lot of that stuff was kept within the business. So they kept a few things around and just changed the cuffs or whatever for like a year. At what point they cut the sticks off. I remember, like Bortuzzo, for example, would use those the Easton, I forget the model of it now, but that's the white and black graphic he used for a long time. A bunch of guys around the league didn't want to get rid of those, and I remember they came and said, "Listen, we're done making these as of this date, so you're gonna have to switch." So guys ordered, some guys ordered like 12 dozen of them that thought they would get them through the rest of their career, and Jordan Leopold, he was another guy like that. He used those old Easton skates. They were just really, really soft. Or I think he switched to CCM, and he ordered I don't know how many pairs of those skates, and he'd milk them forever, and thought he'd get them through the rest of his career, and he did. They were soft, and those things
Wow.
were like slippers. But yeah, he funny story with him. He got real agitated with Ken Hitchcock at one point because he wasn't dressing for games. He was having a Hitch was making him dress for warm ups, and he was like, Hitch, I've been around a long time. Just cut me a break. I'm not gonna take warm ups and then have to go shower and everything else. And he kept telling him, no, you're gonna take warm ups. And so one day he got real mad. He came in the equipment room and we had this old pair of like tube chassis skates, like Bobby Hall played with, and hanging above our sewing machine. He's like, "What size are those?" Well, like, I don't know, like 9. And he's like, "Sharpen them up." And we laugh. He's like, "No, sharpen them up. I'm gonna wear them." And he put these things on. He went out for a skate in these ancient tube chassis skates. He actually skated pretty good at them, and nobody even noticed, which was actually really hilarious. But
Wow. Go back
yeah,
through pictures and see if any of the photographers caught that because that's
yeah,
hilarious.
I don't think anybody did. No, I don't think anybody did. It was one of the funnier moments while I was there. He was a funny guy.
And you mentioned too the Easton six. Was it Mike Green, the last one that was hunting all
Yeah,
the league? I think for the S
the old
19s, even
CNP.
buying them
Yeah,
from
yeah.
fans.
Yeah, he did. I was around for that actually. So funny story with that. He actually had like 3 of them left, I think. And he was, again, like you said, he was milking those things as long as he could. I mean, he was literally paying people on eBay and everything else to get those. And I remember I think it was the Bauer rep went into their locker room in Detroit, and everybody was trying to make him sticks at the time to try to get him to switch. And he was right outside the room, and he went to flex one of the sticks to test it, and it snapped in half. And everybody like freaked out, like, "Oh my god!" Like, can't believe, because then he had like one stick left, or whatever it was. But yeah, I was around for that. That was one of those. I mean, Yamir Yager did that at one point. I remember the first time he came in and had, I think it was 21 sticks that he brought on that trip, and every one of them was like a different length, and then he had a couple old like CCM vector sticks from way back in the day, and I guess he was going on eBay and finding old sticks just to try old stuff again, I guess for whatever reason, but he
That'd be
never
crazy.
really
You
changed.
get an eBay purchase and you look at the shipping and it's him.
Yep. Oh yeah, it's crazy how many times you see stuff like that. You'd never think in the NHL, but it happens.
And I know your equipment guys talk between all the teams because if you got trades or whatever going on, had you been reached out before, or have you had to reach out to other teams saying, "Hey, we're looking for this piece of equipment, or this
Yeah.
guy needs this particular thing. Do you guys happen to have it?" Does that happen often?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Yeah. Helmets, that's a big one. Guys would want that old we actually had a good handful of them in the back still for a long time, but the old H52 or HT2 or whatever that helmet is that
Yeah.
Steen wore forever. And you have to reach out and try to find those from guys. And it just at some point we were pretty good about telling people no. Bert was pretty good about telling people no. I know there's other teams that they give and give and give, and gets a little crazy at some point. It's like the glove thing, like guys rotating gloves in between shifts and everything. I mean, we try to keep that to a minimum because some of it's, the player's thinking more about his equipment than he is the game sometimes. But
Sure.
yeah, there's times you have to reach out again, like those knobs with Steiner and elbow pads, shoulder pads. That was probably a big one. You'd have guys want an old model, Warrior shoulder pad or something that they didn't make anymore. But yeah, it wasn't too often. Usually you could find something in a guy's bag and rebuild it if you need to. So,
And you talked too with the changeable blades on the skates. Were you once that really came into play? Were there a lot of guys that wanted that switched
oh yeah,
regularly during games?
yeah. I can't remember for sure, but I think we pretty much just told everybody at one point. I mean, minus Steen, Vladdy, and I think we had one other guy that didn't want to change right away, but and the CCM guys didn't change at all. But all the Bauer guys, I think we pretty much changed them right away. Um, I mean, and that was huge because you have Petro changing blades out nonstop. Jay Bowmeister was a guy. It seemed like he got his blades done every period. I mean, he was
Wow.
constantly getting his skate sharpened. He skated on a really deep hollow for a big guy. So for him to get them done as much as he did was kind of shocking. And then once the interchangeable blade thing came, I mean, that just it makes a world of difference. We'd have 6 sets or so, per guy, always sharp and ready to go. So you just swap them out and you can sharpen them later on. It saves a ton of time, and then unfortunately, again, you had guys, Steen, who just didn't want to change. He wanted that old bolt style holder. So, when he blows a tire and he's got to get a skate done, he's got to take a skate off. And Steiner
All
wasn't a
that
guy who could
extra
just
time.
yeah, and I mean, I can't tell you how many times he got yelled at by Hitch because he'd come off and, he couldn't just take a skate off. He had to take his shoulder pads off and his elbow pads, and he take his pants off, and then, one skate, and then the other, he's got to put it back on a certain way. And, so we could be done in 1 to 2 minutes, and we're back on the bench, and Hitch is yelling, and well, Steiner's still getting redressed. So, we
It's
had to
all
have a
those just
talk
the
with
little
him.
things that those players want and do a
Yeah.
certain way.
Yeah, it's a routine thing for him, and to throw one skate on without redoing everything a certain way, just it just doesn't feel right. So I get it.
Y
It's goalies, that's the toughest one. I think with goalies, it's they can't really change that fast, so you kind of had to improvise sometimes with them still having their pads on or whatever.
And did you do much with any of the other goal equipment other than their skates?
No, our one of our other guys, he was kind of like the goalie guy. It seemed like he did a lot of goalie gear. Most teams kind of have like one guy that's really just the goalie guy per se. We would do some stuff, but for the most part, they always have one guy that did it. But I mean, during my time, honestly, like most of our goalies were pretty good. There's a few things they'd ask for with, maybe adding or subtracting some padding here or there, where they can, what that was legal, because Kay
Sure.
Whitmore obviously had to approve all that stuff. So there wasn't really much you can do that without having to send it to approve to him. So a lot of our guys are really good with stuff. I mean, they might get a new glove or new blocker, but there wasn't a lot of like alterations, maybe like an inner pant belt or something goofy on a pant. But our guys are pretty mellow with that stuff. Yarrow and God, he's honestly probably the most high maintenance guy, kind of so to speak, during my time, just because he went through a lot of pads. I remember one year we had an equipment sale, and I think we had 15 or 16 sets of his pads
Wow.
for sale. And I think we actually talked to his rep at one point, and we were like, "Hey, I think we owe you for some pads." And he's like, "Oh no, actually, we owe you some pads." He had this deal worked out with Brian's, and they just kept funneling gear to him. I mean, he would call the guy directly and just be like, "Hey, just give me another set." So, which is funny. I listened to one of your other podcasts, and I think it got brought up about guys cleaning goalie pads. And he was the first guy that I remember seeing do that. He would take his pads and he would go sit in our equipment room. He'd take a big bottle of lacquer thinner, and he would scrub all the marks off his pads. Man, they always look brand new. And so I'm sure a lot of collectors didn't care for that, but that was
Harder to
his.
photo match that and unless
Yeah,
you got them at the end of the
exactly.
year.
Yeah. So he was that guy. He was always kind of cleaning his pads and making changes where he could.
And
So,
I
but he
guess
really dealt with the guy directly.
oh, sure. He's the one too that was that during your tenure where his helmet was run over?
That was Brian Elliott.
Or
Uh,
that's right. I'm sorry. You're right. My
yep.
memory should be better.
Nope, that was during my time. Again, it's this other guy that Bert and I worked with. He was always in a hurry. He had no patience for anything, and he kind of wore me out sometimes with that. But I had to take a team over to the Cahokia airport and drop them off one night, and then we were going to transport all the gear because I think we had a concert in town or something that night. We are going to transport everything over the mills. So I was like, hey, I'll drop everything off and then I'll come back and then go over with you and help you set up. He just couldn't wait. And I think it was something like one of our box trucks at the time was in the shop or whatever, I think is what happened. And so all he had was his personal truck. And he for whatever reason just refused to wait. So he loaded up, 4 goalie bags of gear and a couple other things, and he shoved them in the back of his truck and didn't have a camper shell or tonneau cover or anything on it, and just I guess thought it was going to make its way there. And so he's driving on the highway going out to the mills, and he gets a phone call from Max Lapierre, and he's like, hey, why is our hockey gear on the side of the highway? And he then looked back and realized that the bags had blown out. And so I think there was 2 bags that blew out of the back. One of them was untouched. The other one got smoked a couple times by
Oh
some
no.
cars. So I remember we had a set of pads. I think they had some tire marks on them. And then a pair of skates that got clipped. They ended up being okay. And then obviously the famous goalie mask that was smashed in half. And the look on his face when he had that mask, because that was during a run where Moose was on a hot streak, and
I
he
remember
was,
that.
yeah, he was really particular with his stuff. And I mean, he was super routine, nicest, coolest guy in the world. But man, on game days, you almost couldn't talk to him, man. He was so dialed in. And I thought he was gonna punch this guy in the face. Like
Oh
he was so
geez.
pissed. And so he had to wear his backup mask. Thank God we had his backup mask in the other bag that didn't get hit. Otherwise, he would have had to wear like just a stock mask or something. I mean, it would have been
And
really, really
yeah,
bad.
when it's fitted to you and all that, and you're
Yeah.
set up for you going to a
Yeah.
stock thing, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, luckily we had a really good relationship with the painter. We kind of helped get his start in the NHL, Headstrong Graphics, and he whipped one up for us pretty quick. And I think he might only played a game or two in that other mask, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I that hung around for quite a while, and
I know
I
it's
want
still
to
in the
say
area. One of
somebody,
the local collectors
yeah,
in this
yeah,
area
yeah,
still has it.
yeah. So
Because that I think showed up on NHL auctions. Everybody's like,
yeah.
"Holy hell! I can't believe it's out there."
Yep, I still have pictures of it somewhere. It's just I mean it's completely flat. It's hilarious to look at, but I don't know, it was one of those kind of karma things for him, just like, just kept telling him, hey, just slow down, take your time, like ask for help. And he wanted to rush all the time. That wasn't my jam, but
And he paid for
that's
it.
what happens. Yeah, I mean that's unfortunately that's kind of stuff that happens when you rush around like that. So
Any other oddball things like that have happened, or gear not? I know you guys are super sharp about that stuff, but gear
yeah.
showing up missing, or players giving away gear that they shouldn't have been giving away, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, like uh I remember Roman Polak came back from can't remember if it was a start of the year or if he went over to the Worlds or something like that. And I know he came back and had I think a dozen or 2 dozen sticks that went missing. I apparently the guys at the airport, were bad about stealing those and reselling them. And so I remember that happened to him at one point. I think I want to say Yaskin maybe it showed up one point, or one of the Russian kids or something, and their stuff was, they're missing their skates or bags didn't show up. And
Jeez.
luckily we always had something floating around that we could improvise with. We had piles of stuff in the back that you could usually get by with. I think at one point we had to talk with Vladdy about giving away sticks. I mean, he used to give away, I think he still does, but gives away a lot of sticks. So at one point we didn't have many to resell up in the team store because he just kept giving them away all the time, which he's a super generous guy. He was really good about that kind of stuff. I know a lot of guys, Scotty Upshaw is a guy I always like to pocket sticks where he could for obviously buddies back home or to summer stock or whatever. But um, we had, I remember Nail Yakupov, his last year. We kind of knew he wasn't going to be around a whole lot longer in
Mhm.
the league. And I remember at one point, he was a really, really good dude, super funny, and him and I kind of hit it off a little bit. And he used to come give me a list every game, and it was just a list of three to maybe even six guys sometimes of, hey, I want a stick from all these guys. And he was collecting sticks from other guys, and he was sending them back home because he kind of knew he was kind of at the end of his NHL time there. So a couple little things like that, but nothing too out of control.
And I guess that's another thing is, did you run across many players that collected either other players'
Yeah.
sticks or jerseys for that matter? I know there's a few guys that
Oh yeah.
collect their own and collect other people's.
Yeah. I know. I think the most famous one now to everybody's probably Ovechkin has a
Oh
pretty
God, that
awesome
collection's
stick collection.
insane.
Yeah, it's like, I love sticks. That's my thing. I've collected sticks since I was a kid. Sticks, I've got some gloves, mostly Brett Hall stuff. But yeah, I know he had a pretty good collection. Yakupov did. Actually, my cousin is Clayton Keller, plays for the Coyotes. He kind of got into sticks a little bit, so I helped him out. I got a few for him as a kid. I think he's grabbed a few during his time.
I don't think people are going to tell him no now that he's in the
Yeah,
league and
no.
made a name for himself.
Yeah, no. Yeah, he was pretty good about trying to get sticks when he could or whatever. I didn't get him a ton. I remember I got him a Patrick Kane, and I think I might have got him a Crosby or something at one point. But um, yeah, I mean, otherwise, you'd have guys. A lot of guys ask for charities, stuff back home.
Sure.
Maybe their kids or whatever. I think the coolest one during my time was probably Zdeno Chara had just won the hardest shot competition with the 108.8. And I remember Al McInnes came in at one point and asked if he could get a stick from Chara. And I don't know if it was actually for him personally. I don't know that it was. I think it might have been for a charity. So I went in, I said, hey Z, Al would like a stick if that's cool. And he's like Al McInnes, like he was blown away. I was like, yep, that Al McInnes. And he goes, I will sign one for him if he signs one for me. And I'm like, you know what? Funny you say that. Because his equipment guy goes, I highly doubt Al McInnes has sticks lying around. I said, believe it or not, we have like 2 dozen in the back still. We had just a bunch of
Wow.
his old Sherwoods just still in the back for whatever reason, had been there forever. And so he signed one to Al, and Al signed it. Uh, pardon my French, but 108.8, holy shit, keep shooting, Big Al or whatever he signed
That's
it.
awesome.
He thought that was the coolest thing ever. So that was pretty cool to see somebody like that get so, geeked out over
Oh
another
yeah.
player's stick. That's super cool. So yeah, but I had a lot of guys, not with the Blues, but I remember Malkin one year was having a hard time scoring, and he was going to every city, and he would find, I can't remember, I think he's left-handed or whatever, yeah. And he'd go find like a left-handed guy from their team. And I remember like Vladdy was our guy. And, hey, give me one of Vladdy's sticks. And you're like, okay. And he goes, sign. Oh, he doesn't want it signed. And he would like tape it up and go out and play with it.
Wow.
And I can't remember whose stick he ended up with that year. He ended up playing with one for quite a while, I think. And I think at the end of the day, ended up going back to his own stick. But yeah, he was trying out sticks like crazy one point. It was pretty wild.
That's
So
crazy. And collectors will
yeah,
catch that when you see like the pictures of the stick racks. Is
yeah,
why is
yeah,
his number written, but it's this player's name?
yep. I
And
know Kelly Chase always used Brett Hall sticks, just
of course he did.
yeah, he never I guess he didn't want to tape up sticks, as the story goes. He just always got used to using Holly's pattern, so he just come grab whenever he played with the day before. And so Chase would use a bunch of his sticks. So I think there's a good handful of them out there I've seen that have 39 on the knob or something like that. So
That's fun. And knowing Chaser,
yeah,
that doesn't surprise me either. That
yeah, yeah.
since theirs two are so close. I
Yeah.
guess as an equipment guy too, as we're wrapping up the season, we're in the playoff mode now. How did a season start for you, and then how did a season kind of wrap up for you as an equipment guy?
Well, we weren't going super deep in the playoffs there for a couple of years. So, I had a couple months, we were kind of off essentially. And then we kind of take turns going to and from the mills with guys. And then kind of really once August 1st hit, you're kind of like almost like every day you're back in the rink again. Maybe take weekends off or something, but we would start early. I always went with the guys up to Traverse City for our rookie camp. So we were sewing laundry bags every day and just starting to piece together stuff for those guys. Cleaning out the back storage room. You get new apparel every year, Adidas come in, or whoever it was, Reebok. And you kind of got rid of the old stuff, bring the new stuff in. So a lot of organizing and cleaning. And then just slowly guys would be trickling in until really around, I guess it was around like September 9th, 10th, 11th, we would usually leave to go up there. So I would spend a week up there with those guys. And then we have Bert and our other guy, and whoever else we'd have in sometimes helping, maybe the guys from Peoria or Chicago would be in helping out. And then we'd come back and we'd pretty much start camp the next day and to go through training camp. And that's honestly the most stressful time of the year, I think, for us. It's just a lot going on. I think we'd have like 55 guys in camp sometimes, and it's a lot of moving guys around to and from rinks. We'd have one game at Scott Trade versus Columbus, another game in Columbus at the same time. So you got to coordinate, two guys go here, two guys go there, and making sure you're sending the right guys gear off with, the right teams. And, a lot of laundry.
Oh, I
I
can
mean,
imagine.
thousands of towels and, that, start of the year was definitely the most stressful. And then you get into start of the season. I'd say the first like month, you're kind of dialing guys stuff in and figuring out what their stuff is, new players, what their tendencies are, their superstitions and all that. And then once you kind of get through the first month, you're kind of just smooth sailing from there. Then it's just a matter of just making sure, guys have what they need throughout the year. And then playoffs hit, and that's like a whole nother can of worms. I mean, it's, we always joke it turns into secret squirrel, everything's a secret, and, everything's, hidden, and the visiting teams are coming in, and I would go hang out in the visiting room a lot of the time with the guys, and, the other equipment guys, all of a sudden you can't really talk to them anymore. And, you can't go in their room and you can't do this and you can't do that. And
Not know who's hurt or who's sore.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah, they were real goofy about that stuff, and everything was just a big secret all the time. And so I didn't particularly care for playoffs as far as that goes. It's just I was a social butterfly. I like to kind of talk with all those guys, and you had to kind of pipe down a little bit when you get to that, and everybody takes everything a little more serious. And a loss, instead of some guys just blowing it off, now it's guys get super frustrated and they're angry and complaining about stupid stuff. And so it was a kind of a high stress time. And but when you won, man, that was fun. I just had a thing pop up on my time hop on Facebook. I think it was this morning from when we finally beat Chicago and St. Louis and moved on. And I think me and one of the medical guys, Chris Palmer, other equipment guy, in a hug on the bench, just screaming our brains out. And I think the Post Dispatch, whoever caught a good picture of it. And that was a fun time. That was
The
good. But
primetime Blues and Blackhawks
yeah, man, it
rivalry.
was so much fun. I miss that a lot. And then unfortunately, we lose out, and you kind of go home and you take everybody's stuff, and it's kind of a normal night when you get back, and then kind of huddle together and, okay, what do we do now? And you get in the next day and you kind of start cleaning everybody's stuff out. And within a couple of days, guys are coming in for their exit meetings, and you pack them up with whatever they need for the summer and send them on their way. And then you spend another week or two kind of cleaning up, and then you kind of have some time off for a couple of weeks. So
And I guess that's a question. So when the players, if they're coming back for next year, they're on contract, whatever, you're setting them up with make sure they got gloves and helmet and just all
yeah,
their equipment to get them through the summer, because wherever
yep,
the heck they're headed off to, if they're not local or not staying
right.
local.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. We had for the most part, you send guys off with, a dozen or so sticks. If guys got sample gloves or sticks, whatever their skates are going to try for the summer, you'd send them off with that. Sometimes guys would just take it. Sometimes you have to ship it somewhere for them. And then it got less and less. towards my last couple of years there, and I'm sure nobody does it now, but man, I remember guys like Jason Arnott and I mean even Jackman and stuff that would come in and end of the year you go have our stuff packed up, like, yeah, I'll get it in August, and
Yeah,
they
just taking the summer
you
off.
literally wouldn't see them until August. They'd come in, they grab their, you got my gear in the back, and you pull it out, and that was the old school, guys just letting their bodies rest and recover, and you don't really see that anymore now. It's a year round job,
Sure.
honestly.
Take
So
a couple weeks and then you're right back at it. Uh,
if that, yeah, I mean, I've heard stories from other guys skating within a couple days, and it's
wow.
just no break, and you're there all summer long. So
It's funny watching the progression of how that and talking to other guys that
yeah.
have played in the NHL at different times. So once the season wraps up, were you involved in the like planning for the equipment sales or getting that stuff together?
Yeah, actually, that's kind of how I kind of started a little bit with the team. Bird had asked me at one point when I was with the Bandits to help and working with Johnny Max to help out with a couple of the equipment sales when they were at the Mills, that little party room there.
Oh yeah.
Um, and a big Jim Creighton, I think, was doing those at the time for a long time. So I was around for some of that. And then I can't remember, like it might have been my first or second year, maybe. I kind of came in and I want to say we were making okay money, but I didn't, my retail side kind of kicked in and I'm like, man, we should be making a lot more money with this. Um, we just weren't getting rid of stuff. I felt like stuff wasn't priced to move. Some of it was a little obnoxious. So I kind of the one year kind of got free reign to come in and price what I thought would sell. And that was the first year we did a lot of like, 3-for-1 deal. Every stick was like 100 to 150 bucks, maybe at most. We didn't have a lot of stuff signed back then. Like it was kind of rare to have stuff actually signed. And it was like, 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 deals. Goalie pads, I think we dropped those down to 600-800 bucks. It was reasonable, people could afford it, and then a lot of people are buying that stuff. Really wasn't even so much collectors, but it was people wanting to wear it.
Yep.
And I'm not going to throw out what we made that year, but we got rid of like almost everything. It was a significant number, and I can't tell you how many people reached out and were like, man, that like the pricing was awesome. I got this, and this, and the selection was good. So then the next year they kind of let me do the same thing. And that was the year we changed the pants. We used to have those stripes down the front of the pants,
Oh yeah.
with jersey. So we got rid of those, and man, we had a lot of stuff that year. That could have possibly been the first year or maybe the second year we did it down at Scottrade on the ice level.
Oh, that
And
was
man,
a fun scrambling
yeah,
down the stairs to get to the ice
yep.
level.
That was nuts. I mean, we had lines. I mean, that was crazy. And we always had a pretty good line and stuff at the Mills, but I remember that year we had so much gear. I mean, it took me a good couple of weeks, planning all that. And I think that was the year we had like the 15 plus sets of pads for Yarrow too, and just thousands of sticks and gloves, and I mean, you name it. And we got rid of a ton of stuff. That was while I was there or around, to my knowledge, that was the biggest year we had ever had at the sale. And then you know, unfortunately someone in the front office decided that they were gonna start selling more autograph stuff and kind of letting the team store upstairs handle it. And the prices were, in my opinion, double from what I saw on a lot of stuff that following year. And it didn't seem like there was a lot of stuff that wasn't signed. I know they came to us and we had piles of stuff and we couldn't really just sell stuff the way we used to or whatever. We kind of had to sign everything and send it up. And price wise, I felt like it was kind of overkill, but that's above my pay grade. So I
Sure,
didn't really have
and
to
I
say
know
that.
at least from the collector's side, a lot of us, especially once things were coming to auction,
Yeah.
pushed back and said, "Hey, don't."
Right.
Most collectors don't want this, and some do, but
Yeah.
we'd rather let us make the decision, not you.
Yeah.
But you're right. That first year on the ice, and then the prices were phenomenal because I think there were racks and racks of game jerseys,
Right.
two or
Yeah.
three hundred
Yeah.
bucks.
I remember that was one of the first times we went through one of the storage rooms we had to clean out. And I mean, we had so many training camp jerseys. I mean, we were pulling out God, we had a couple guys. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but like I like found guys like I might have been Eric Johnson. A couple guys just found their rookie jerseys that we're like, where have these things been? They were just sitting in this back storeroom forever. We had the old starter training camp jerseys and
Yep.
the
I own a
Kachuk
couple of
and
those. Those are
yeah,
insane.
I actually I'm looking at one of Walt's I got right now that he gave to us. So yeah, a lot of that stuff. That was we had a lot of stuff that year. So
And it's funny. I mean, even still, you know how Enterprise is set up,
yeah,
and how much of that stuff is stored that it still pops up. What was it, two,
yeah.
3 years ago when they threw out? I think the count when we asked somebody in the Blues organization, 700 jerseys they were
Oh my
selling
God.
at that weekend for $100 a pop.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I heard I kind of heard stories of this like hidden equipment room, storage room, where all these jerseys, like I don't know, Brett Hall stuff, whatever it may have been. And I swear I've been in every nook and cranny of that building during my time for whatever, and I never saw that ever. And I maybe my last year or the year after, I think was when I first heard about them actually getting into that and selling stuff. Um, and I think I heard because I want to say there was a Brett Hall jersey or something that may have popped up. Someone might have shared. I want to say Grissom maybe had posted it or
Yep.
something.
I,
And I mean, that was honestly that was the first time I dove into like equipment groups and stuff. Because I was a Brett Hall freak and I was trying to trade some stuff to get some more Brett Hall gear and just kind of dial in just nothing but Brett Hall and Clayton Keller stuff at that point. So yeah, that was the first time I'd really ever knew that that was actually a real thing, was that storage room. I'd heard rumors about it, but I honestly never saw it my entire time there.
Oh, and I think it was 2016, 2017. It may have been right after you left. Looking at the timing,
Yeah,
is one of the season ticket holder like preview nights. Somebody went into one of the stores and there was a Grant Fuhrer. There was all the clown style
I
jerseys of
heard
big name
that.
players for
Yeah.
75 to like $200.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the year after I left. They all had those in there. As
And
I was someone called me and told me about it, and I want to say one of my buddies had bought a jersey and sent me some pictures, and I was like, "Where did you find that?" And he's like, "Man, they're in the team store." And I didn't believe him because I didn't even know that stuff existed. So
and at the pricing level, because I mean, a Grant
yeah,
Fuhrer shouldn't sell for
no,
75 bucks, even if it was
no,
an issued or he wore it for 20 minutes,
right,
just because of who it is.
exactly, exactly.
So I guess from the equipment side of things, and again, you have some collector experience as well. Are are the tracking, the marking, the documenting of game worn jerseys even on the radar of equipment guys in reality?
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, we just there's probably there was probably a couple cases where, we didn't get set tags and stuff right away. Maybe you get a guy in a trade or call a guy up and, you have maybe just make a nameplate or something that day. I mean, it was like crazy rare. But Bert was always good about going back and getting set tags, putting that stuff. They would send it back to Levy and they would get it put in like the next day or something. Um, yeah, I think we were pretty good about getting stuff labeled and stick wise gloves, that was never really like I mean, I never thought about that stuff really. It was just we just put it in the sale. It
Sure.
wasn't until like I said, really my last year and then more so ramped up the year after I left where they really started getting into the collector stuff. And it was like the back half of my last year is when they said, "Hey, we need to get more sticks to sell." And and that was kind of really the biggest thing was sticks, gloves, maybe some helmets, maybe a few pair of skates. We never really have like shin pads or anything. I don't know if anybody
And that
collects
was
shin
always one
pads,
of
but
the weird things, is even going to the equipment sales where you guys are blowing that stuff. And I'm a guy too that there's certain
yeah,
things I'll buy to play in because I
yeah,
play both goalie and forward, and there's other stuff, you
yeah,
know what? When I hang that on the wall. But it is, at least for the Blues, that kind
yeah,
of stuff, the shin guards, the elbow pads, the shoulder
yeah.
pads, you never really saw. Was there a reason
No.
just that
Well,
those didn't come up?
because and I mean I'm one to talk here. I You just don't get rid of that stuff. I mean, I've had my same Jofa shin pad since I was 16, 15, 16 years old, I think. I think I got a second pair of them at one point and never even wore them. It was just that's one of those pieces of guys just don't change elbow pads. I mean, God, I like got off top of my head. You have Jason Arnott, Brendan Morrow, Jay Bowmeister, David Perron. I mean, those guys got stuff from like their rookie years, and it's got 1,000 different chunks of, you could tell what teams they played for because there's a different color material that matches that team's uniform on every piece of equipment they have. And, I mean, God, Jason Arnott, I remember laughing one time. He came in and we pulled his jock strap out, unpacking his bag, and I swear this thing was 6 feet wide. The elastic was so stretched out, and he had it forever. And he wouldn't stitch it up. He just would fold it into 40 layers and then use clear tape to tape it around his waist. And guys just don't get rid of that stuff. And when we did, like, shin pads were probably one, and elbow pads, the only time we got rid of them is they were so trashed they couldn't be repaired anymore. And so we just threw them in the dumpster, honestly. It never occurred to us that people would even want that, really, because it was just destroyed.
Sure.
But here again, in hindsight, I think that's some of the coolest stuff now. Looking into it, it's like to have a set of elbow pads that were around for almost an entire career for some guys.
Oh, yeah.
That's a rare piece.
And were you there, or had you already left when they switched from a Reebok to Adidas?
Let's
I'm trying to
see.
remember the year that was now.
Uh, no, that was yeah, no, I was there for that. That was my last year, I guess. I think was our first year
'Cause
of
that was
Adidas,
the
if I remember
huge
right.
blowout, at least for the Blues equipment
It,
sale. The
it,
Gaylord boxes
yeah,
full of the Reebok practice jerseys for $25, and then
yeah,
we also found, I think you guys went deep diving for stuff because there were Jamal Mayer's gloves. There were you
yeah,
talk about the old gear, the older
right.
leather Blues gloves and stuff,
Oh
and
yeah,
they're like $20 a piece. I regret
yep,
not buying more of that because of who it was and
yep,
that type of gear. Because I'm a
yeah. I mean,
huge gear nerd with that stuff too.
yeah, they actually, what? They might have came. I'm sitting here while we're talking. I'm looking across at my cousin's jersey from his brief stint, his first year in his 7 games, and he's got a Reebok jersey. So yeah, I guess Adidas would have came in the 17-18, I
Okay.
believe. So
So that
uh,
summer sale would have been the blowout
yeah,
for Reebok, though.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, so yeah, because then you got to swap all your shirts and all that kind of stuff
Uh-huh.
too. That's like a whole, you get rid of all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that probably came in a year after, I guess. So
And I guess what are your thoughts on the better tracking of game worn jerseys and that kind of tagging? Because I will say, even there's a whole year, I think it was 708 or 809, so before you, of Blues
yeah.
jerseys, none of them had set tags. There's
Oh
just
wow.
numbers written in the size tags in the neck.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I didn't know that.
And
You know,
I think that was the year where Reebok did the Edge 1 and the Edge 2s, and there
okay.
were problems, and I think after those initial batch, I need to double check, but I think that's
Yeah.
what we figured out. But yeah, no set tags for an entire year.
Wow. Yeah. I am not gonna lie. I am so glad I got out when I did because they started the tracking chip in the
Mhm.
shoulder of the jersey, and from what I understand, they got to take those out every single night before they do laundry. And man, that adds so much time to, it doesn't seem like much, but when you're sitting there digging that out of every jersey, a few minutes to us leads to hours sometimes. So
Sure.
that's a lot of extra work. It is cool how they have that. I mean, now I guess I can pretty much tell you what games they were in and what shift and
And I
that
know
kind
at
of crazy
least,
stuff, I think. But
and I don't know if you've seen any of them for this year. The St. Louis Blues jerseys actually have a barcode in the neck. There's not, at least the beginning of the season, there weren't any set stamps in them, but a barcode in the neck. And then when you bought those, it would actually give
yeah,
you a printout of what the games were. But yeah, those
I heard that.
the
I just
digital
heard that.
tags that you were talking about too, several of those have actually hit the hobby. People got game warns at the end of the season. They weren't
Yeah.
removed. They were still in the jersey.
Oh wow. That's crazy. Yeah, I know. I want to say the Rangers used to have a barcode system maybe in their jerseys or in some equipment or something. They were really, really weird about like not giving stuff away. Everything had to be accounted for. Guys couldn't just like literally walk into the stick room and just grab a stick like they did with us. They had to ask for it, from what I have been told. So
Wow.
yeah, it's cool now that you can kind of do that kind of stuff. I mean, I haven't gotten any gamer jerseys from my cousin yet. I've got some gloves, a helmet, a bunch of sticks and whatnot, but that's something I'm kind of considering getting into now. I just, I don't know. Again, I'm a Keller guy, so I'm gonna
Okay,
probably try to dive into
relation,
that.
it helps a little bit there too.
Yeah,
Reason
yeah,
to be
exactly.
involved. Now, do you have many game worn jerseys, and do you have a favorite?
I actually don't have a single game. No, let me double. No, I don't think I have a single game worn jersey here. Um, I'd never had a game worn one. I don't, not that I can recall. Um,
If you
I
could have
did
anybody's, whose would you
well.
have?
Well, so actually, I traded. I want to say I traded a Schwartz helmet, maybe, and something else. Got a few years back with I want to say Wade, maybe.
Mhm.
I think it was him. He had a Mike Denton game. I want to say it was Dan's. It was the year they did the retro jersey. I think
Oh
it was
yeah.
his last year playing before he got arrested. Um, he had that jersey, and I actually was kind of a Mike Danton fan. And oddly enough, I was sitting with Clayton's dad in the hotel lobby of the Ritz in Arizona before one of his games, having dinner, and we had just started talking about his past, and he said, he goes, he was a big Mike Danton fan as a kid. And I'm like, wait, time out, time out. Like, wait, I'd never heard this. I mean, I've literally been with this kid, following his career since he was 4 years old, and I'd never heard this. And he's like, yeah, I always told him, he'd come out and fly around the ice, really fast. He's like, that's what you need to do. You need to get fired up. And so he always kind of did that as a kid. And I never knew that. So I'm like, you know what? I have to have that jersey. So I made a trade for him. Like I said, I think it was a shorty helmet, maybe something else too. And I had that jersey for a little bit. And then I was going to get it framed. Oddly enough, I know the FBI guys that actually arrested him.
Oh wow.
So I always thought it'd be cool to get a picture of the FBI reporter or whatever, and put it in with the jersey, but I never got around to it. I ended up trading it back to him for something else. I don't, it might have been a pair of gloves, Brett Hall
Mhm.
gloves or something. I'm not sure even what it was for, but yeah, just super random. But that was the one game use piece or jersey I think I've actually ever had.
And anybody who doesn't know that story, go look it up. For St.
Yeah.
Louis Blues fans, we know it well. I
Oh yeah.
regret I actually had Danton's first jersey, his preseason worn through the
Okay.
first set. And in the Blues media guide that year, the hem was flipped up. So it had Migray was doing the jersey at that time,
Yeah.
had the Migray tag you could see perfectly in the media guide. And I regret selling that years
Uh-huh.
later. But
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, he's one of those crazy stories I wish I
Yeah.
had again.
Yep.
Uh, if you could have anybody else's jersey in the league, past or present, who would you have?
Brett Hall. I mean, that's I've had a couple come across that I've reached out to guys about, but it's unfortunately it was out of my, price point at that time or whatever. I mean, a lot of his stuff that I come across is pretty expensive. So unfortunately, I haven't gotten one yet, but that's my goal, is to get a Hall gamer. So I'm still constantly trying to get sticks when I can. Unfortunately, with COVID, like a lot of people, I got sucked back into the world of hockey cards,
Mhm.
and I just my wife called me one day and she's like, you have a bit of a problem. I just looked at her credit card, and I bought a lot of cards over the course of a week or two. But now when I started collecting, it was there just a regular card, and now it's like you got the jersey pieces and sticks,
That's
and
yeah. I
and
guess
so I
that's a question
yeah.
is from somebody that's worked in the locker rooms, does it bother you to see jerseys cut up and put in cards?
Oh my God. Honestly, then I didn't even really think about it, to be completely honest with you. And now, like, funny, I was looking at today, I was just skimming through looking at some Hall cards, and there's ones with his gloves, and being a Brett Hall glove guy, too, I see these gloves cut up, and it makes me want to puke, be honest with you. Because some of them are hard to find. And sticks, again, being a big stick, I know he went through a lot of sticks, a lot of guys do, but still, just to see him cut up, I mean, it's cool. in a way, the way they put them in the cards now, it's really awesome. But the glove one bothers me for some reason. I hate seeing gloves cut up just because,
You know, there's only so many of those out there.
exactly. Yeah. So, which crazy story I'll share from actually this past week. Again, Brett Hall gloves. Uh, my holy grail piece of equipment has always been um, Brett Hall's 1996 All Star gloves that he wore. I don't know if you remember the Rawlings ones where they were
Yes,
like
look like the baseball
brown with
gloves.
the red cuff. Yeah. Man, that's when I just like got so sucked into gear at that point. And he wore those, and I was like, oh my God, like I have to get a pair of those. And they weren't just selling them at a store. And so I always thought that was the coolest piece, and I've missed out on those 5 or 6 times since probably like 2009, where again I was young and didn't have the money at the time, or someone outbid me in an auction or whatever. And just recently, accidentally stumbled across a pair thanks to one of the Blues game worn groups. I want to say Brett Hall just had a milestone, and someone had said, "Hey, let's see your Hall gamers." And so, of course, I'm scrolling through, and here's a guy from, I want to say Toronto or something. He posts a picture of these gloves, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I message him right away. I'm like, are those yours? And he's like, yes. And I gave him this whole background with these. And long story short, I convinced him to sell them because he was one of those guys that just never want to get rid of them.
Sure.
But his price was insane. And as much as I wanted them, I couldn't justify paying this price. And so we've been in contact for about a month or so. And I he actually contacted me and said, listen, I got an offer from somebody, and I was like devastated. And here it is again. It's so hard to find these things. I lost out on them again. And so I'm like, hey man, congratulations. That's an unreal price. He sells them. And my best friend since second day of kindergarten just passed away a little over a month ago. And he's a guy who really got me into ice hockey and everything too. And a really, really good customer and friend of mine reached out to me, and he said, hey man, I got something for you. I'm gonna come by the shop. And he came by my shop last week, and he goes, hey man, I got something for you. He gives me this box, and he said, I know you had a rough time lately, and you've always been really good to me. And I kind of helped this guy out with he first came in as a new hockey player,
Mhm.
and gave him a lot of pointers. And to this day, we just kind of became good friends. And I opened up this box, and he bought these gloves for me.
Wow.
And I came home. I was freaking in tears, dude. It was the coolest gift anybody had ever given me in my entire life. And I'm looking at them right now. It's like I still don't believe I have them. It's mind blowing to even look at these things. So pretty cool. Very extremely generous gift from somebody. I did not deserve that, but I've got my holy grail piece.
Hey, and sometimes, you know
So
what? Your holy grail comes in
yeah,
the weirdest ways too.
I know. I know people that spend ungodly amounts of money for, their jersey or whatever they want. And so for someone to like gift that to me is just, it's incredible. So I owe this kid a lot. He's a great, great human being. So I'm
You know
very
what?
grateful.
And we ramble on many times on this show. Is at the end of the
Yeah.
day, the collecting community, it's more about
Yeah.
making friends than the
Right.
jerseys or the sticks or whatnot. And
Yep.
again, that's another right there shows it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Chad, we've covered all kinds of great stuff. Anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here tonight?
No, not really, man. It's always fun talking about equipment. Like I said, I'm an equipment nerd, so I'm still the guy that's I find myself going down in pregame skates now to go watch Clayton or whatever, and I still go down for pregame skate and go right over to the bench and look at the stick rack, and I'm looking at the guys' gear as they're walking out and seeing what's new. And I'm always going to be that guy. I've got a thing for equipment for some reason. So
And you are the expert in that. Your shop, I've of course you're constantly posting about things you're doing in your shop. Tell
mhm,
people, and again, anywhere, and we have listeners all over the world with
yeah,
this. You do business with people everywhere. They mail you skates, they mail you
yep.
gloves. Give them your information. I'll make sure we put it with the podcast too.
Yeah, it's SkateTech, skate sharpening and equipment repair. We're at 204 Scott Troy Road, Suite C in O'Fallon, Illinois, right across from the McKendree Metroplex over here where McKendree College plays. Um, online, www.skatetechsharpening.com. Facebook, Instagram. Recently got us on TikTok. We got a lot of informational videos on TikTok. Those are blowing up. So yeah, you can find me anywhere. We do pretty much everything. Skate sharpening obviously is our bread and butter, but profiling, glove repalming, I mean, you name it, we pretty much do it. Anything that we kind of provided to NHL guys, we do at a retail level, and we service everybody from mini mites, kids learn to skate, to the pros. And I have a lot of the local NHL guys. I've done stuff for guys in Japan, Sweden, Switzerland, Finland, all over Canada, US. It's pretty crazy. So you got equipment piece that you need fixed, hit us up. We can get it done for you.
Chad, I met you more or less by accident. I knew where your shop was and was passing through to go to the blue store to buy some
Yeah.
stuff, and had a pair of my goalie skates, the true one pieces that were flaking
Yep.
off. And you looked at them and said, "Here's what you do. Here's how you get them fixed." Sent
Yep.
them off to True, and they took care of me. So I'm
Oh yeah.
gonna make sure I keep bringing business to you. And
Appreciate it.
again, your knowledge, the stories tonight have been a ball. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining me.
absolutely,
I
man.
appreciate it.
Yeah, have to do it again sometime.
Definitely have a fantastic evening, sir.
You too, man. Thank you.